Hi, welcome to What's Up Westchester. This is number 28. I'm Kim Arenas with the Kim Arenas team at Houlihan Lawrence, and today we are joined by our very special guest, Judith Dupré, New York Times best-selling author, and I could say longtime friend, I guess 20-something, well, yes, and dear friend, Judith. Behind us here are all these amazing books that Judith has published. Bridges, skyscrapers, monuments, of course one of my favorites, churches, and Judith's latest book, One World Trade Center. So Judith, thank you so much for joining us today.
I am so happy to be here. You know, it doesn't take much for me to want to hang out with you. Okay?
Well, and we've been talking about this for a while, and we're finally here.
Yay.
Cheers to that,
With
right?
our coffee.
Yes, we're here.
Let's move to something stronger.
Yes, okay. Yes, we get the show done. Exactly. We got to have some fun on this trip as well. And of course, we have Margaret Ann Tilford and Elizabeth Pittman here with us today as well behind the camera. So I'm sure they're looking forward to that as well. We've talked about this road trip for a long time and spending time with Judith. But Judith, tell us, do I have this correct? So you were the only author that was given all access for your book, One World Trade Center. Is that correct?
It actually is.
Wow. Okay.
It was the privilege of my life to write this story, the first history, first published history of the New World Trade Center. But what a huge responsibility, because I interviewed so many people, and everyone professed to tell me the real story, and it was the truth for them. So it was really finding the balance with all these hundreds of stories, and then putting it together in a form that the public could appreciate. Yeah, absolutely.
And how long did the project take, and how did you initially get involved in the process?
Well, it's funny, when did I start writing the book? Because I began researching my skyscrapers book back in 1994 in the North Tower, north of the Twin Towers, where the Port Authority had their archives. And so I had been writing about the Twin Towers, about the memorials of 9/11. I was living down in Tribeca at that point. So it was a long process. But then this book, actually, when we finally got the green light, which took quite a bit of time, probably about just under 4 years.
Wow.
Intensive work. But so when it finally started, it really did. But I had, you till the ground, you never know when the flowers are going to come up. So.
Wow. Well, if you have not received a copy, if you don't have your copy of One World Trade Center, you really should pick it up. What a gift. They're telling us over there that we're not loud enough. Can you imagine that? Judith and I need to be told to speak up. I can't imagine that.
I know.
Well, I said earlier, I'm so privileged to be among you four women today. This really is kind of just a conversation, so Margaret and Elizabeth can join in at any time. But I was going to ask you too, and I do want to go back to the book and talk more about that as we talk, but I also wanted to ask you, this year has been a bit of a transitional time in your life.
Yes.
And just wondering, after reflecting on this past year, any new passions that, not really developed, but just things that you had time to sit back and reflect and say, this is what I want to work on next. This is what I'd like to do.
Well, I'll tell you, I think that I have you to thank for a lot of these big changes, because I finally decided to sell the family homestead in Mamaroneck. My boys up and out, doing so well thanks to the schools. And it was something that I wanted to do, but suddenly there was, an opportunity to sell the house.
Wow.
And thank God for you and the amazing cat team, I have to say.
The cat team.
You whipped me into shape.
She named us Cat.
The cat team, but you whipped me into shape. And so I decided to do something I've always wanted to do. I'm living temporarily in a little coastal town in Connecticut. It's beautiful. You can see the ocean right here.
It is beautiful.
And so it's been a very interior journey this last few months, just thinking about what do I really love as I enter the golden hours of my life. Not what do I have to do to survive, what do I love? What are my real gifts that I can offer the world? And I've always written for the general public. I've always wanted to explain how architecture, which can be a very esoteric subject, but we all know buildings, we all live in places. And so for me, I've always wanted to explain the connection between where you live and the quality of your life, the kind of building you're in, and how you experience happiness and satisfaction. And it doesn't necessarily mean you have to live in a big grand house. It means you have a home where it's calm and peaceful, because that's where your life unfolds.
That's where your life unfolds.
Yeah.
And also what brings you joy, right? I mean,
Exactly.
the things that bring you joy and having those comforts
Yes.
around you. I know it was emotional selling your home
Yes.
in Mamaroneck.
It was
And
hard.
I'm sitting here looking at the book on your coffee table.
Oh.
What a charming, beautiful house. And even though you had made that decision
Yeah.
to sell your home, it's still very emotional.
Well, that's where I raised my sons.
That's where you
So
raised your son. So
that
many
was-
memories there.
Yes. The hardest thing, they're like, oh, declutter. Everyone says declutter and get rid of, excess. For me, the hardest thing, sorting through the Christmas ornaments.
Ah,
All the little silly things that just took hours and hours. Anyway,
to go through. They're
I
crying.
think I gave
They're
them
crying. They're crying over here in the.
But you
the
know-
background. But it's true. We were there with you when you were doing that, and I think that's one of the greatest joys of our job is really coming alongside people and helping them through this big transition. And
Yeah.
I always say it doesn't matter why someone's moving. It's a very emotional process, and we do take great joy. And out of that, Judith and I have known each other, like we said earlier, for it's like around 20 years.
Around 20 years.
And we first met in Mamaroneck, and then we kind of reconnected over and around selling Judith's home, and just rediscovered a friendship.
Yes.
And that is one of the biggest blessings and the biggest joys of doing this job.
Well, everything is about the connection, one-on-one. Sometimes people think that because, for instance, I write books, that my connection with my readers is like a distant. Now, true, there are strangers that I will never meet that have read my books, but the connection, it really is a
With
one-on-one.
people, yeah.
When I'm writing, I'm trying to connect with that person
Wow.
that I may not meet, but I'd like to think I can reach out in friendship.
Yeah, well, like you
And-
said earlier too about building bridges and building connections, and I
Yeah.
think about you, Judith, and how much you have to offer. And we know you from Mamaroneck, but you're just this worldly, national, international woman that we are so happy and so proud of all that you do and all that you offer. And I think about Judith, and I think about architecture, and then I think about art, and I think about religion, and I think about your boys and how you've raised your boys, and I think about all that. And I know that you've said you would love to give back and you would love to really engage. Correct me? Did
Yeah.
you say just engage with the public and connect with them?
Yes.
And that's part of the show, and what we want to do is we want to give back and bring value to our viewers. And I could see you, Judith, I really just having you being the interviewer and having all these people that you've met, these fascinating people on your journey
Yes.
that you've met, and interviewing them. And your books, of course, share all that, but I could also see you doing.
Well, guess what? You're
That's-
reading my mind, because
Well,
this is exactly what I've been thinking about. I don't need to write every book in the world. It might seem that way, but I don't. I love talking with people, having them, it's amazing what people will tell you.
Oh.
And, I've done a lot of interviews, but I want to continue doing that. And I think that it would be a blast to have a podcast.
Yes, that's what I'm thinking.
And I'm working on a public information system. I love public art.
Yeah.
I love reaching the public.
Yeah.
So
Well, you do it, and you do it well. You're such a natural, and I guess most people that write books, not most people, but a lot of people that write books probably don't have that presence, and probably are not, some maybe are not comfortable, talking and being in the public eye. And I know you enjoy that, and that's what I was thinking too, like different boards and different things that you've been, a part of
Yeah.
over the years. You bring so much to the table. So we're just so proud to
Yeah.
be here with you.
Ah.
And anything else? I'm just looking back at some of your books here with us now. Anything else to share about your books and something you would just...
I'll tell you something. I realized during this year of discernment, what I do love is, I don't like the solitary work, the patience that writing requires.
Yes.
I mean, I do it, but it's so much more fun.
Well, you're such a people person.
To be
You're
out
a
with people and talking with them and going to see architectural sites and then working with the graphic designers, the photographers. So I think that as I go forward, it's going to be a lot more collaboration, even more. But I have to say, I'm not happy with you, Kim Marinas.
What's that? What is it?
As I have been looking for a new home.
Oh.
Far from Westchester County.
Yes.
Because obviously I'd be still working with you if I was buying in Westchester
Yes.
County. Now I see that I've met a few realtors. You have spoiled me forever. I am used to having the best possible realtor.
Well,
And I'm telling you the truth because I've been texting you at midnight to ask your advice about what to do now. So, but thank you.
Well, thank you for saying that. That's the whole team.
The honest to God truth. And everyone couldn't be better.
Oh, well, thank you for saying that. Really, thank you. And then, our show is What's Up Westchester. So we've started doing this now, which I love, just asking our guests, what is it you loved about living in Westchester? What did you love about living in Mamaroneck?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, one of my favorite things was coming over Fenimore, coming down the hill of Fenimore, and there was the sound with the perfect red sailboat. Sometimes the cherry blossoms were blooming. The soccer fields where my kids were playing. I mean, it was just...
And where mine played.
Yes, it's just a moment of fullness. A full vision of life.
Oh, wow. And you get that in Mamaroneck, right?
Well, you got access to the water, but
Well, you have access to the water, and kind of just in another way. I mean, I feel like Mamaroneck just offers so much. We're so close to New York City, and yet in Mamaroneck, it's just rich with, culture and the people that live there. And I mean, I know from my time there, just the experiences there and just how wonderful and deep the friendships are.
Yeah, really is the best of both worlds because 35 minutes from Grand Central. So I could be working in the city, but then I could, be screaming from the sidelines of the playing fields.
The soccer field,
yes.
Well,
good place.
On a personal note, I hear graduation is coming up.
My youngest son, Emmett's graduating from the University of Wisconsin. Go Badgers.
Go Badgers. I know we have some Badger fans watching us and a lot of friends that their kids are at Wisconsin.
Quite a few Badgers in Westchester County.
Yes, we do.
And Emmett's going to be, he'll be moving to Manhattan and starting his first official job. So.
Okay, and your son is also coming home.
And Brendan's coming home from Tokyo for the graduation party.
Oh, I know you'll be so happy to have them together, right?
Oh,
Nothing like it.
Friends of mine always say you hit the jackpot with those kids, and it's so true.
You did, but I don't think you hit the jackpot. I think.
Well, I think I hit
your
the jackpot.
Your steadfast guidance.
Yeah.
And example. I think really example that you've been to them.
Yeah.
Is definitely not to be forgotten.
I'm thrilled to be on the show.
Well, thank you.
Forgive my frog in my voice. I've been presenting so much. Been traveling, so I have frogs in my throat, but they're happy frogs. They're happy to see you.
Yes, and are the girls telling us to wrap up, or they tell us we have another question? Anything?
No, we're getting a big N-O.
They're telling us it's time to have our celebration that we are all together. So Judith, I didn't do this in the middle because people join us at all different times during the video, but today we are joined here by Judith Dupré, dear friend and client, New York Times best-selling author. I could go on and on about the list of things I could tell you about Judith, but I think we'll have to, do this again. I would love, maybe we'll be on your podcast.
Well, that would
when
be,
you
that
start
would be a blast.
Yeah, so we'll schedule our time on your podcast.
That would be fun.
So thank you so much. So until next week, this is What's Up Westchester. I'm Kim Arenas with the Kim Arenas team at Houlihan Lawrence. Thank you, my dear.